Imagine, right, that you are watching a live professional basketball game, like prime time.
Oh, yeah.
A completely packed arena, millions of people watching on television at home. And a superstar player decides, for whatever reason, that he wants to walk right up to the hoop and dunk the ball.
Right.
But, and here's the kicker, he wants to do it without a single person in the building or at home noticing it. Which just sounds completely impossible, right?
I mean, it sounds like a joke. You've got, 20,000 people in the seats?
Yeah.
Plus referees who are literally trained to watch every single movement on the court, and millions of eyes glued to the screen.
Exactly. You would think that between the human eye and all those camera lenses, somebody is going to see a 6'8" guy dunking a basketball.
You definitely think so.
But according to the neuroscience of human attention that we are looking at today, not only is this completely possible, but it exposes this massive, kind of terrifying illusion that you and I are living inside of every single day.
Yeah, it really does, because we tend to treat our eyes like video cameras, you know? Like you just point the lens, hit record, and whatever's in front of you gets safely stored in your brain.
Right, like a perfect objective recorder.
Exactly.
Right.
But the reality is that your brain is not a passive recording device at all. It is this incredibly aggressive editor. We are navigating a visual and cognitive landscape that is, honestly, a heavily constructed illusion.
And that perceptual magic trick is really the beating heart of our deep dive today. Welcome, everyone. We have a massive, wildly fascinating stack of research, philosophy, and neuroscience to get through today.
It's a huge stack.
It is. And our mission today is to uncover how your attention, your focus, and your perception literally build the reality you experience. We're going to explore how human minds act as filters for chaos.
Starting with digital chaos.
Yes, starting with how we manage the mess of our personal digital notes.
Right.
Then we're going to zoom way out to the cosmic level and then bring it right back down to how our brains can be hacked to completely miss that impossible basketball dunk.
It's quite a journey, and it really is all about finding the signal in the noise. And let's be honest, there is almost no place noisier right now than our digital lives.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, between the emails, the articles, endless social feeds, our digital world is pure chaos.
It really is.
So to make sense of it, the research we're looking at introduces this fascinating framework for organizing digital workspaces, like, say, a Notion database or a personal wiki.
Right.
It takes ancient Aristotelian philosophy and actually applies it to how we file our digital notes. It treats your digital workspace not just as this cold filing cabinet, but as what they call a cybernetic soul.
I love that term. It's a really brilliant synthesis, because if we go back to classical philosophy, Aristotle talked about this concept called hyle.
Hyle?
Yeah, which essentially means pure, unformed matter, like the absolute raw material of the universe, before it takes on any shape or purpose.
Gotcha.
So in a modern computing sense, you could argue that hyle is the physical hardware, you know, the silicon, the copper, the raw electricity.
That's the physical stuff sitting on your desk?
Right. But when people try to organize their digital lives, the sources point out that they often make this fundamental categorization error. They assume that their computer's operating system, like Windows or Mac OS, whatever, is that. Yeah, they kind of label the OS as hyle.
Why is that an error? I mean, if the hardware is the physical stuff, doesn't the operating system kind of act as the blank slate for all my apps and notes?
Well, not exactly. The literature corrects this by arguing that an operating system already has rules, boundaries, and logic built into it.
Right, it's already structured.
Exactly. It shouldn't be categorized as unformed matter. It's actually what they call the substrate, or the execution environment. Think of it as the digital soil. Soil isn't nothing, right? It's a very specific medium that contains the nutrients and the spatial boundaries, where a plant, or in this case, your software and your thoughts, can actually take root, live, and move.
Okay, I love that analogy. So if my laptop's OS is the soil and my digital notes are the plants, how do we actually cultivate a garden out of the chaotic fire hose of the internet?
That's the big question.
Because the framework we're exploring gives this process a deeply bizarre name. I mean, they call it the baby in formulation pyrofunnel.
Yeah.
I literally read that and immediately thought, what on earth does that mean?
The naming is definitely out there, for sure. But the mechanics behind it are incredibly practical once you break it down.
Okay, break it down for us.
It's essentially a blueprint for how to filter raw, overwhelming data into usable wisdom. And the pipeline uses 3 distinct stages to describe how you should process information.
Right.
So first, you act as a satellite. You cast this wide net, scanning the macro environment of the internet, picking up spontaneous data without judging it too harshly.
So that's the gathering phase. You're just pulling in the raw sunlight, so to speak.
Precisely. Then you move to the tornado phase.
The tornado.
Yeah, this is where you funnel that massive swirling cloud of data down into your own personal atmosphere. You start narrowing the focus, categorizing things, finding patterns.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And finally, you reach the micro level, which they represent as extracting the DNA.
Wow, okay.
This is where you pull the absolute core, actionable insight out of the funnel and actually integrate it into your own life or your work.
But the crucial part of this pipeline, and I guess this is what explains the baby part of that really wild title, is the mindset you have to have when you start that first satellite phase.
Right, the beginner's mind.
Yeah, you have to look at the data with the eyes of a baby.
Yes, which ties directly into the Zen Buddhist concept of Shoshin.
Shoshin.
Yeah, or beginner's mind. Think about how a baby looks at a room. They don't have preconceived notions of what a chair is or how a shadow is supposed to behave.
They're just taking it all in.
Right, they haven't built those strict neural pathways that automatically filter out anomalies. They just see pure, unfiltered potential.
Whereas, if I look at a data set as a quote-unquote expert in the field, my brain is already so rigged with rules that I might automatically ignore a brilliant new idea just because it doesn't fit my established framework.
Exactly. The expert filter often acts as a delete key for genius.
Oh, wow. A delete key for genius.
Yeah, to truly capture innovative ideas from the digital noise, you have to intentionally adopt a blank slate.
So we're basically trying to build a digital digestive system for our own brains.
That's a great way to put it.
We use a beginner's mind to gather the raw material like a satellite, funnel it down through the tornado, and extract the DNA so we don't just get completely overwhelmed.
And what's profound here is that this perfectly mirrors the theory of extended cognition.
Extended cognition.
Yeah, when you set up a system like this, you aren't just filing documents away in a dead database. You are building a living ecosystem where your human intention uses digital tools to cultivate knowledge. Your digital space literally becomes an extension of your biological mind.
Which sets up just an incredible transition into the next layer of this research. Because this biological metaphor, this idea of a baby digesting information and learning to interact with its environment, it isn't just restricted to how we manage our digital nodes.
Not at all.
The philosophical models we're looking at scale this exact same concept up to the size of the entire universe.
They do. It's a thought experiment they call the cosmic baby.
The cosmic baby.
It's a framework that suggests the universe itself is an infinite waking infant.
That is just, it's wild.
It is. You have to picture the cosmos not as cold, dead space, but as an emergent consciousness that is eternally waking up and learning to move its immense body. And that body is reality itself.
But a human baby doesn't learn how to use its hands just by staring at the ceiling.
Right.
It learns by grabbing blocks, shaking rattles, actually interacting with physical toys.
Exactly. It requires friction and interaction to understand its own telemetry. And according to this philosophical model, the problem-solving toys placed in the cosmic crib are the deep, complex challenges of human existence.
So our struggles are the toys.
Basically, yes. The struggles we face are biology, the process of healing, our pursuit of longevity. These aren't just random accidents. By tinkering with these living puzzles, the consciousness of the universe is learning how to articulate its own limbs. We are the sensory organs through which the cosmos experiences, filters, and organizes itself.
That is a staggering way to look at human life. We are literally the nerve endings of the universe figuring itself out.
Exactly.
But how we, as individual nerve endings, actually perceive this universe is where the hard neuroscience comes in.
Yeah.
And honestly, it completely shattered how I think about my own eyes.
Oh, for sure. Anil Seth's work does that to people.
Yeah. The neuroscientist Anil Seth is brought up in the sources, and his work on predictive processing argues that we don't passively see the world at all. We're actively hallucinating it.
Yes. And to understand why that is, you have to think about the physical reality of your brain.
Okay.
Your brain is locked inside a dark, silent, bony vault. Your skull. It has absolutely no direct access to the outside world. All it ever receives are electrical signals leaping along sensory nerve fibers. It doesn't receive light or sound, it just gets electrical code.
So it's basically sitting in a dark room trying to guess what is happening outside based on a bunch of Morse code.
That's a perfect way to put it. Because it's constantly guessing, your brain generates a predictive model of what it thinks is out there. And then it projects this model outwards.
Why?
So what you experience as reality is actually generated from the inside out. You are hallucinating the room you are sitting in right now. You just use the sensory data coming from your eyes and ears to constantly correct and refine that hallucination.
Think about, like, waking up in the middle of the night and seeing a terrifying intruder in the corner of your bedroom.
Oh yeah, classic example.
Your heart rate spikes. You are absolutely terrified. And then you turn on the light, and it's literally just a coat hanging on a chair.
Yep.
For those 3 seconds, your brain actively hallucinated an intruder because it had bad lighting data and just filled in the blanks with fear.
Exactly. When the sensory data is ambiguous, the internal hallucination becomes really obvious. But Nilsef's point is that even when the lights are on, you are still hallucinating the code.
I'm still hallucinating it.
Yes. It's just that the hallucination is firmly anchored by the sensory data. It's a controlled hallucination.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. If I'm walking around in a VR headset of my own making, generated entirely inside my own dark skull, how do you and I ever agree that the sky is blue? Like, how do we interact without just bumping into each other's completely separate hallucinations?
This is where the researchers bridge the gap between neuroscience and philosophy. They introduce a concept called the consensus frequency.
Consensus frequency, okay.
Reality, as we experience it together, is simply the hallucination that we all agree upon. When your internal predictive models sync up with the external data, and more importantly with the predictive models of the people around you, that shared synchronized hallucination becomes our functional world.
And your researchers use a specific philosophical lens to explain how this synchronization happens, right? I mean, they bring up panpsychism.
Yes, they do. Panpsychism is this philosophical view suggesting that consciousness, or mind, isn't just a byproduct of complex brains.
Right.
It's actually a fundamental, ubiquitous feature of the physical universe, kind of like mass or electrical charge.
Like consciousness is everywhere.
Exactly. And in this specific framework, they suggest that if the universe is fundamentally made of information and thought, then there must be a force that pulls these separate hallucinating perspectives together.
And what's the force?
They propose that love, and not just as a romantic emotion, but as a fundamental drive for connection, acts as the cosmic gravity.
Wow.
It's the force pulling our isolated frequencies into one shared, unified awareness.
It's beautiful, honestly, to think about connection as the gravity that tunes all our individual VR headsets to the same multiplayer server.
That's exactly what it is.
But it makes me wonder, what happens when a person's brain is naturally tuned to a completely different radio station? What if their frequency doesn't automatically sync up with the consensus?
This brings us to a crucial rethinking of neurodivergence, which the literature addresses deeply.
Yeah.
Historically, the medical field viewed any deviation from the consensus reality as a mechanical deficit or a disease.
Right.
For example, Eugen Bleuler, a psychiatrist who originally coined the term autism in the early 20th century, actually linked it to schizophrenia.
Really?
Yeah. He described it essentially as a detachment from reality.
Right. So the old assumption was that a neurodivergent mind was broken, or just retreating into itself away from the quote-unquote real world.
Exactly. But the modern resonance models we are exploring now completely flip that script. They argue that neurotypical minds are simply tuned to the consensus frequency. They are highly optimized for social cooperation, fast communication, and seeing the big picture, the forest, if you will. Neurodivergent minds, however, such as those with autism or ADHD, are often tuned to a high-fidelity frequency.
Meaning they aren't ignoring the forest at all. They are just intensely focused on the intricate fractal details of the bark on the trees.
Exactly. They perceive the sensory details, the structural code, and the underlying patterns of the world with intense clarity.
Which has to be exhausting sometimes.
Oh, absolutely. Living with that dial turned up to 11 can make the consensus world feel overwhelming or chaotic. But the point is, it is not a deficit. It is differential tuning.
Differential tuning. I like that.
And from an evolutionary standpoint, the human species desperately needs these high-fidelity tuners to detect anomalies, solve complex structural problems, and push our collective knowledge forward.
And what I found so practical in the research is how they connect this idea of differential tuning to how we manage our own internal mental health.
Yes, the ACT method.
Right. They use a really powerful concept from acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT. It's called the chessboard method.
It's a wonderful tool for anyone who struggles with anxiety or sensory overload. Usually, when we have an anxious thought or an uncomfortable feeling, we treat it like an enemy chess piece.
Right, we fight it.
We try to capture it, defeat it, and get it off the board entirely.
We basically go to war with our own minds.
Precisely. But the ACT framework suggests a completely different approach. Instead of being the player fighting the pieces, you practice becoming the board itself.
Be the board.
Yeah. The chessboard holds all 32 pieces. The black and the white, the good thoughts, and the painful ones equally.
Doesn't care.
Right, the board doesn't judge the pieces, it just provides the context for them to exist. You step back and observe the thoughts without fusing your identity to them.
And this idea of not judging the pieces brings up another wild connection from the material. The chess AI, AlphaZero.
Oh, AlphaZero is fascinating here.
It really is, because if you look at how traditional computer chess engines were programmed, they assigned fixed point values to pieces. A queen is objectively worth 9 points. A pawn is worth 1.
So the computer will always protect the queen.
Right. It operates on a really rigid consensus-based value system.
Exactly.
But AlphaZero, which literally taught itself to play and completely revolutionized the game, it ignores those fixed values completely.
Yeah.
It doesn't care about the traditional hierarchy of the pieces.
It's just playing a totally different game.
Yeah. It evaluates a piece purely on its situational relevance. AlphaZero will routinely and happily sacrifice a major piece, like a queen or a rook, just to move a tiny pawn into a space that achieves dynamic harmony and controls the board.
Because AlphaZero realizes that a pawn on the right square is infinitely more powerful than a queen on the wrong one.
Exactly.
It treats every piece as a fluid variable in a single harmonious equation.
Think about how we can apply that to human potential. Like treating a neurodivergent trait or even a moment of severe anxiety as inherently bad is like saying a pawn is useless.
Right.
But AlphaZero proves that true mastery comes from situational relevance. So as a society, are we basically saying we need to stop playing these rigid games of checkers where everyone has to be a queen and start playing AlphaZero level chess with human potential?
That is exactly what we are saying. That is the ultimate goal of mental health and societal progress.
Wow.
It's not about repairing a broken machine. It's about transposing a person's unique key or frequency so they can harmonize with their environment, so they can play their music in the right room.
Okay, so we've established that human perception is this fluid, controlled hallucination, and that our focus actually dictates our reality. But what happens when you weaponize that understanding in a physical, real-world space? Let's go back to that basketball dunk from the intro.
Let's do it.
How on earth can you make a dunk invisible to 20,000 people?
To understand how the trick works externally, we first have to look at how focus alters our biology internally. The literature dives into the neurology of pain, specifically the gate control theory. Typically, when you are in pain, say, undergoing a medical procedure, your instinct is to distract yourself. You look away, you bite your lip, you squeeze your eyes shut.
Right, you try desperately not to look at the monster in the room.
But pure distraction rarely works well because it's an escape attempt. Your brain's predictive model still knows the pain is happening.
It knows what you're trying to hide from.
Exactly. However, researchers are finding that attraction is entirely different.
Attraction.
Yes. Attraction involves shifting your focus toward high-frequency beauty or intense engagement. For example, hospitals are now using neuroaesthetic virtual reality.
VR for pain.
Yeah. They immerse a burn patient in a stunning, interactive VR environment while changing their bandages. And because their brain is profoundly attracted to this new reality, it releases a flood of dopamine. This intense focal shift actually closes the neurological gates in the spinal cord. It physically prevents the pain signals from ever reaching the conscious mind.
So by completely consuming the brain's attentional bandwidth with something super engaging, the pain just gets filtered out.
Exactly.
Which brings us right back to the basketball court.
It does, because the invisible dunk relies on that exact same limitation of human attentional bandwidth.
Okay, so our superstar player wants to dunk unnoticed while everyone is watching. He knows that human brains prioritize social conflict above almost everything else.
We can't look away from drama.
Right. So he walks up to a key opponent and whispers a highly inflammatory personal secret. This triggers a massive explosive argument on the court.
People love a fight.
Players are shoving, referees are running over, the crowd is gasping. This argument acts as a massive butterfly distraction. The superstar simply walks away from the chaos, picks up the ball and dunks it while the game clock is literally still running. And nobody sees it. How is that physically physically possible?
It comes down to two very specific cognitive vulnerabilities: saccadic suppression and inattentional blindness.
Okay, lay those on me.
First, when something highly dramatic happens, like a fight breaking out, your eyes dart rapidly toward the action. These rapid eye movements are called saccades.
Decades.
Now, if your brain processed visual information while your eyes were darting that fast, you would experience severe motion blur.
Oh, like waving a camera around.
Exactly. You'd get nauseous. So, your brain literally cuts off the visual feed during the movement. You are functionally blind for a fraction of a second while your eyes move.
Wait, really? My brain turns off my cameras while they pan.
Yes, thousands of times a day. You just never notice it.
That is wild.
But the second factor, inattentional blindness, is the real clincher here. Once the crowd and the referees lock their eyes onto the fight, their cognitive load is entirely consumed by processing the social drama.
Because they're trying to figure it out.
Right. Who is fighting? Why are they mad? What are the social consequences? Even if their peripheral vision captures the superstar walking to the hoop, the brain evaluates that visual data and says this is not as important as the social conflict.
And it just deletes it.
It simply discards the information before it ever reaches conscious awareness.
So the eye catches the light, but the brain refuses to encode the memory.
Exactly.
But here's the catch that the researchers point out, and this part really got to me. Human brains are easily hacked by social drama. But what about the cameras?
Yeah.
Right, because NBA arenas use systems like Second Spectrum. It's an array of high-speed cameras in the rafters that track the mathematical coordinates of the ball and the players like 25 times a second.
And those cameras do not have human psychology.
Right.
They don't care about the fight. They would record the exact trajectory of the ball going through the hoop. The math would indisputably prove the dunk happened, even though 20,000 humans would swear on their lives that it didn't.
That is deeply unsettling. I mean, if I could be looking in the general direction of a professional athlete dunking a basketball and literally not see it because my brain is busy processing an argument 20 feet away, my attention is basically a massive security flaw. How often are we being hacked in our daily lives by things demanding our attention?
This raises a really important question about our own agency. Our perception of reality is highly limited. In chaos theory, there is a concept called a strange attractor.
A strange attractor.
Yeah, which is the focal point that a chaotic system naturally orbits around. In that arena, the fight was the strange attractor. The player weaponized it to control the crowd's focus. Because your reality is a controlled hallucination built entirely from your focus, whoever or whatever controls the strange attractor in your environment literally controls your reality.
Wow.
And the danger here isn't just missing a basketball dunk. Historically, sudden, highly engaging misdirections in crowded spaces have caused people to panic, leading to deadly stadium trampling incidents. Our attention is a powerful physical force, and it can absolutely be hijacked.
Wow. We have covered an incredible amount of ground today.
You really have.
I mean, we started by looking at how to design an Aristotelian cybernetic soul to filter the chaos of our digital nodes.
Right.
We zoomed out to view the universe as a cosmic baby, learning through our biology. We explored how Anil Seth's predictive processing means we literally hallucinate reality from the inside out.
Which is still a crazy thought.
So crazy. We talked about how neurodivergence is simply tuning into a high-fidelity frequency, and how treating our struggles like the AlphaZero chessboard can help us find harmony. And finally, we saw how the very limits of our attention can be weaponized to make a slam dunk completely invisible.
It all revolves around the profound power of focus. Whether you are extracting a core insight from the internet, closing the gates of physical pain with beauty, or deciding what to look at in a chaotic room, your attention is the fundamental key that unlocks or locks your reality.
And before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final mind-bending concept from the research to think about on your own. We talked about how reality is a shared hallucination, a consensus frequency.
Right.
Well, the researchers mention a phenomenon called scopisthesia.
Oh, this is fascinating.
It's the psychic staring effect. Basically, that creepy feeling that someone is looking at you. Now, scientifically, we can't physically feel someone staring at us. But our brains do have a hypersensitive gaze detection system. And neuroscientists using hyperscanning technology have discovered something incredible. When groups of people share deep, sustained focus on the exact same object, their brain waves physically synchronize. It's called gamma wave sync.
Your brain literally alters its electrical firing rhythm to mathematically match the people around you when you look at the same thing.
Exactly. So, if reality is just a shared hallucination, and our brains naturally sync up at a biological level when we share focus, what happens when highly advanced social media algorithms or AI eventually learn to perfectly predict and trigger this brainwave synchronization at a global scale?
That is the million-dollar question.
Are we heading toward a future where our consensus frequency is no longer something we negotiate together, but is actively programmed for us by algorithms that know exactly how to capture our gaze?
It is the ultimate invisible dunk on human consciousness.
It really is. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, protect your strange attractors, and keep questioning where you point your focus. Because just knowing your internal video camera is recording doesn't mean you're seeing the whole picture. See you next time.